Emma had always been the quiet one, the kind of person who would rather sit in a corner and observe than be the center of attention. Even as a child, she was shy, preferring books and drawing to noisy games or crowded parties. Over the years, she learned how to blend in, how to make herself small in the room so that no one would notice her too much. People often mistook her quietness for weakness, but Emma had a strength that wasn't obvious at first glance. She was thoughtful, resilient, and fiercely determined, though few could see it. When Emma started at her new workplace, she felt the usual nervous excitement. It was her first job in a big company, a chance to prove herself, to finally show what she could do. She dressed neatly, prepared her notes, and tried to be as confident as possible. But inside, her heart was racing. She didn't know anyone there, and the office was filled with people who seemed to know each other already. Their laughter, jokes, and casual chatter made her feel like an outsider. On her very first week, Emma faced a small challenge that turned into a moment she would never forget. That morning, she woke up to find that her younger brother was very sick. His fever had spiked overnight, and his mother was at work, leaving Emma with the responsibility of taking care of him. She tried to call in, but the phone line was busy, and by the time she reached someone, it was already late. Emma had no choice but to rush to work as quickly as possible, hoping that her colleagues would understand. When she arrived, flustered and apologetic, she muttered an excuse about a personal emergency, her voice soft and shaky. She didn't explain too much because she wasn't comfortable sharing her private life with strangers, and she had learned early on that some people didn't care about others' problems anyway. Her colleagues, however, were not sympathetic. A few of them exchanged amused glances and barely concealed smirks. "Here she is, finally," someone whispered. Another chuckled under their breath. It wasn't malicious, not exactly, but it was mocking. They had already started labeling Emma in their minds, the quiet, shy girl who was probably just making up excuses to avoid work. Emma felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She wanted to explain more, to tell them the truth, but the words got stuck. She could feel their eyes on her, judging, waiting for her to slip. The laughter and whispers were like tiny needles, pricking at her self-esteem. For a moment, she wondered if she had made a mistake by even coming in today. She felt exposed, as if everyone could see her weaknesses laid bare. But Emma didn't run away. She had faced challenges before, small and large, and she knew she couldn't let fear control her. She took a deep breath, apologized once more, and quietly went to her desk. She focused on her work, trying to make herself invisible, hoping that if she stayed quiet, the teasing would stop. Even as she worked, she couldn't help but notice the subtle glances and occasional whispers. Her heart ached with the unfairness of it. She was here to do her job, to prove herself, yet the first impression she made was being judged and laughed at. She reminded herself that first impressions didn't define a person. There was more to her than what they saw, much more than they could ever imagine. Emma's mind wandered to the life she had led before this moment. She had grown up facing obstacles that most people couldn't understand. There had been illnesses, personal losses, moments when she felt utterly alone, yet she had survived every challenge. Every experience had made her stronger, even if it hadn't made her more outgoing or confident in a crowded room. She realized that her strength wasn't something you could see at first glance. It was hidden, like a quiet flame burning steadily beneath the surface. By the end of the day, Emma had made a small decision. She would not let the mockery define her or stop her from doing her best. She would work hard, stay focused, and one day, she hoped, they would see her for who she really was. But for now, she remained quiet, absorbing the laughter and whispers, knowing that her time to respond, to show the truth, had not yet come. Even though she had been mocked for a simple excuse, Emma understood that the world wasn't always fair. People jumped to conclusions, laughed at what they didn't understand, and judged too quickly. But she also knew that true strength often went unnoticed. She had survived worse, and she would survive this too. Her quiet confidence was like an invisible armor, protecting her from their judgment while she prepared for the moment she would finally speak, not with words, but in a way that no one could ignore. Emma left the office that evening with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. The laughter and mockery would linger in her mind for a while, but it wouldn't break her. She had faced life's real storms, and this was just a small drizzle in comparison. Deep down, she knew that one day, the truth behind her excuses would be seen, and it would be louder than any laughter in the room. After the first day, Emma thought things might get better. She hoped that once her colleagues saw her work, they would understand that she wasn't lazy or unreliable. She believed that if she stayed focused and kept her head down, the laughter and whispers would fade. But reality proved to be different. The office, which initially seemed like a place of opportunity, slowly began to feel like a battlefield. Emma noticed that no matter what she did, some colleagues were ready to judge. Every time she gave a reason for her actions, even a small one, it was met with smirks or sarcastic comments. If she explained a delay in submitting a report, someone would mutter, "Typical Emma," as if she had a history of excuses. If she missed a minor detail in a task, it was immediately pointed out and exaggerated in whispers around the room. It was as though her every word, every action, was under a microscope, waiting to be mocked. Emma tried to ignore it at first. She reminded herself that people often judged others unfairly, especially those who were quiet or different. She focused on her tasks, completed her work on time, and tried to maintain a professional attitude. But the constant ridicule was exhausting. Some days, she would feel a knot of anxiety in her stomach before even stepping into the office. She knew she was capable, but the constant questioning and laughter chipped away at her confidence. What made it worse was that the teasing wasn't always direct. Often, it came in small, subtle ways. A laugh when she entered the room, a whispered comment just loud enough for her to hear, or colleagues exchanging glances as if sharing a private joke at her expense. Emma realized that the mockery wasn't just about her being late that first day. It was about her being quiet, different, and not fitting the image they expected. Emma thought about responding, about defending herself, but she had learned early in life that arguing rarely worked with people like this. Their laughter wasn't meant to be answered with words. It was meant to make her doubt herself, and for a moment she did doubt herself. She questioned whether she really belonged in this office, whether she was cut out for the work, or if her presence was just a mistake. At home, Emma reflected on her life experiences. She had faced challenges far greater than office mockery. There were times when she had been sick and had to push through pain, times when she had lost someone she loved, and times when she had felt completely alone. Each hardship had taught her resilience. She had survived when others might have given up, and she had learned that strength often went unnoticed. The laughter of her colleagues, though painful, was small compared to what she had already endured. Still, the daily teasing made her feel invisible and misunderstood. She began to notice patterns in her colleagues' behavior. The same people who mocked her were often quick to show off their knowledge or criticize others. Their confidence was loud, but Emma suspected it was partly a shield, hiding their own insecurities. This thought gave her a little comfort. Maybe their laughter was more about them than about her. Despite the ridicule, Emma tried to remain kind and professional. She smiled politely when someone laughed at her, answered questions calmly, and avoided getting defensive. It wasn't easy. There were days when she wanted to shout or break down, but she refused to let their behavior dictate who she was. She reminded herself that the truth about her life and her abilities didn't need to be proven immediately. Sometimes, patience and quiet perseverance could speak louder than words. Over time, Emma started observing her colleagues more closely. She noticed their small weaknesses and moments of vulnerability. She realized that everyone had their struggles, even if they hid them behind laughter and mockery. This awareness didn't make the teasing easier to bear, but it helped her understand that people often hurt others to cover up their own fears. Emma's empathy gave her strength. She wasn't just enduring mockery. She was learning to navigate a world that often judged unfairly. But Emma also knew that endurance alone wasn't enough. She felt a quiet determination growing inside her, a desire to show the world that her excuses were never meaningless. There was a story behind every late arrival, every moment of hesitation, and every perceived mistake. People assumed the worst because they didn't know her story, and Emma realized that someday they would have to see it to truly understand. That day came slowly, but Emma could feel it approaching. She didn't know exactly when or how, but she knew her time to reveal the truth would come. The laughter that once hurt her so deeply would one day be replaced with silence, respect, and understanding. Until then, she would continue to work hard, remain patient, and hold on to the quiet strength she had cultivated over years of personal struggle. Emma's experience in the office taught her something important. People often judge without understanding. Laughter and mockery are easy, but true recognition of someone's strength takes time. And sometimes, the most powerful way to respond isn't through anger or words. It's through resilience, quiet determination, and waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. By the end of this period, Emma felt a small sense of victory. She hadn't let the teasing break her spirit. She had survived the laughter, continued doing her best, and protected her dignity. Deep down, she knew that the day she finally revealed her truth would not just change the way her colleagues saw her. It would change everything. Despite the laughter and constant judgment at her workplace, Emma carried a secret that no one could see. On the surface, she seemed like the quiet, shy girl who got mocked for small mistakes or being late. But beneath her calm exterior, she had endured a life full of challenges, struggles that had shaped her into the strong and resilient person she was today. These experiences were private, deeply personal, and known only to a few close people in her life. Yet, Emma had a way of holding them close without letting them define her in the eyes of the world. One of the most powerful reminders of her journey was a tattoo she had gotten years ago. It was not just a piece of art on her skin. It was a story, a timeline of her life's hardships, victories, and survival. The tattoo traced a journey through difficult times, moments of illness, loss, struggle, and ultimate resilience. Each mark, each symbol on her skin represented a challenge she had faced and overcome. It was her silent testimony, a permanent reminder that she had survived what many could not. The tattoo was usually hidden beneath her clothing, tucked away under sleeves and layers. Emma had never revealed it to anyone at work, and she had no intention of doing so casually. It was private, sacred, and deeply personal. Revealing it meant exposing herself in a way she wasn't sure she was ready for. She had been hurt in the past when people misunderstood her struggles or laughed at her pain. She feared that if anyone saw it without context, they might not understand or worse, mock her again. At the same time, the tattoo gave Emma strength. Every time she felt judged or laughed at, she would think about the inked symbols on her skin. She would remember the battles she had fought, the nights she had cried alone, the moments she had pushed herself to survive when there seemed to be no hope. These memories reminded her that the opinions of her coworkers, their laughter and whispers, were small compared to what she had already endured. In her mind, she would silently tell herself, "They don't know my story. They don't know what I've survived. And that's okay. One day they will." Emma often reflected on why she had chosen a tattoo as her personal story. Words can be fleeting. They can be doubted, ignored, or mocked. But the tattoo was permanent. It didn't require explanation. It was a visual representation of her life's truth, something that could speak even when she didn't. The symbols were carefully chosen. A small heart to represent love and loss, a delicate line symbolizing the fragile moments of illness, and dates marking moments of personal triumph. To the casual observer, it might look like an intricate design, but for Emma, each part held a meaning deeper than anyone could guess. Her colleagues had no idea about the tattoo, and that was exactly how Emma wanted it. They mocked her excuses without realizing that behind them were real, unavoidable challenges. Each late arrival or brief mistake wasn't laziness or carelessness. It was life happening to her. Life she had survived with quiet strength. Her tattoo, hidden for now, was a secret rebellion against the mockery. A quiet declaration that she was more than they could see or understand. Even though Emma tried to focus on her work and remain unnoticed, the constant judgment weighed on her. She felt frustrated that people assumed the worst about her without knowing the truth. She longed for a way to make them understand, to show that her life wasn't a series of careless excuses, but a testament to her resilience. Still, she reminded herself to be patient. The right time to reveal her story hadn't come yet. She had learned from experience that forcing people to understand rarely worked. Truth had to be shown in the right way at the right moment. Emma's life outside work was also a reflection of her inner strength. She spent time caring for her family, managing responsibilities that others might find overwhelming, and quietly pursuing her goals. She had learned to handle adversity with grace, even when others judged her unfairly. Her tattoo was a part of this resilience, a private source of courage she could draw on whenever she felt small or misunderstood. There was also an emotional weight to keeping the tattoo hidden. Emma knew that revealing it would be a vulnerable moment, one that could change how people perceived her forever. She worried that some would still mock her, that her struggles might not be respected. But she also knew that one day, the tattoo would speak louder than any excuse she could give. It would show that her life had depth, meaning, and battles she had quietly won. Every time Emma noticed the laughter at work, she would think about the tattoo and the story it carried. She would imagine the day when she would finally reveal it, when the people who mocked her would see the truth. She imagined their surprise, their silence, and the shift in their perception. That thought gave her hope, patience, and a quiet sense of empowerment. For now, Emma remained cautious, focusing on her work while holding her secret close. But beneath the surface, a fire was growing. She was preparing for the day when the truth of her life, and the story written on her skin, would be undeniable. Until that day arrived, she continued to endure the mockery, drawing strength from her experiences, from the tattoo, and from the knowledge that one day, she would no longer need words to prove her worth. The tattoo would do the talking, and it would speak louder than any laughter ever could. Emma had endured weeks of quiet ridicule at work. Every little excuse she made was met with smirks, whispers, and occasional laughter. At first, she had tried to ignore it, hoping that her professionalism and dedication would eventually earn her respect. But the teasing continued, growing more frequent and personal. Each day, it became harder for her to simply smile and focus on her work. The laughter and judgment weighed on her like an invisible burden, pressing down on her confidence and patience. The breaking point came during a particularly stressful day. Emma had been working on an important project for weeks. She had stayed late, carefully checking every detail, determined to prove her competence. But that morning, a minor miscommunication led to an error in her report. It wasn't a serious mistake, and she was already working to correct it. Yet, when she explained what had happened, a few colleagues laughed openly, whispering, "Here she goes with her excuses again." And typical Emma. Emma felt a hot flush rise to her cheeks. Her heart pounded, and she could feel tears threatening to spill. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that her explanation was not just an excuse but the truth. Yet, she realized that words alone would never convince these people. They had already made up their minds, and no amount of talking would change their assumptions. The mockery was relentless, and she could no longer bear it in silence. For a moment, she considered leaving the office, walking away from the humiliation, but she knew she couldn't. This was not just about proving herself at work. It was about reclaiming her dignity. She took a deep breath, feeling the familiar tension in her chest. Then, almost instinctively, she rolled up her sleeves, revealing the tattoo she had hidden for years. Her hands trembled slightly, but her resolve was strong. The tattoo stretched along her forearms, intricate and meaningful. Each mark told a story, a timeline of personal struggles, health battles, and moments of survival. There were symbols representing nights spent in hospital rooms, dates marking personal milestones, and delicate lines showing the journey she had endured. It was her life, etched in ink, visible now for the first time to the people who had mocked her. The room fell completely silent. The laughter stopped instantly, replaced by stunned looks and wide eyes. No one had expected this. They had assumed Emma's excuses were empty words, but the tattoo spoke a truth that could not be denied. It was raw, personal, and undeniable, a visual story of resilience and strength. For the first time, they saw her not as the quiet, timid girl they had ridiculed, but as someone who had faced unimaginable challenges and survived. Emma's colleagues stared at the intricate designs, trying to process what they were seeing. Some whispered in disbelief, others looked away, unsure how to respond. The room felt heavy with silence, the kind that speaks louder than words. Emma felt a strange mix of relief and vulnerability. She had revealed her truth, and now there was no turning back. The hidden part of her life that had been private and sacred was out in the open. In that moment, Emma realized something important. She didn't need anyone's approval to validate her experiences. The tattoo was her story, her proof of strength, and her way of showing the world that she was more than they assumed. She had endured far more than anyone in that room could imagine, and she had survived every challenge. The mockery of the past weeks now seemed insignificant compared to the courage it took to show her truth. Her colleagues began to react slowly at first. Some nodded in acknowledgement, their expressions shifting from disbelief to respect. Others murmured apologies or tried to find the right words to express what they were feeling. Emma could see that their perception of her had changed. The quiet strength they had overlooked was now undeniable, and their assumptions about her excuses had been completely shattered. Emma felt a wave of empowerment. She had stood up for herself without shouting, without pleading for understanding. The tattoo did the talking for her. It revealed a depth of experience and resilience that no words could convey. In that moment, she realized that the power of truth was far greater than the power of judgment or ridicule. People could laugh at you, dismiss you, or underestimate you, but the truth, when revealed, was unstoppable. The day ended differently than any other. Instead of feeling small and humiliated, Emma felt proud and confident. She had taken control of the narrative, transforming the mockery into a moment of recognition and understanding. Her colleagues had learned something they could never unlearn. Emma's life was filled with challenges she had faced with courage, and her so-called excuses were actually honest reflections of real experiences. Emma left the office that evening with a sense of calm she hadn't felt in weeks. The laughter no longer haunted her. It had been replaced by a quiet satisfaction. She knew that she had shown her colleagues who she truly was, and that her strength would now speak for itself. The tattoo, which had been a private source of courage, had become her voice, and it had said everything she could never put into words. From that day forward, Emma understood something profound. Vulnerability could be powerful. Showing the truth, even when it scared her, had earned her respect and shifted the way others saw her. The experience taught her that true strength wasn't about hiding behind silence or trying to fit in. It was about standing tall, revealing your truth, and letting it speak louder than judgment or laughter ever could. As the room fell silent, all eyes were fixed on Emma and the tattoo that stretched across her forearms. For the first time, her colleagues were confronted with the truth behind the quiet woman they had laughed at and judged. Each symbol, each line, each date on her skin told a story. Stories that no one could have imagined. Her tattoo was more than just ink. It was a visual diary of her life, a timeline of battles she had fought and survived. The first symbol was a small heart, delicate and detailed. To anyone else, it might have looked like a decorative design, but to Emma, it represented her loss and love, the time she had faced heartbreak, watched people she cared about struggle, and had to remain strong when she wanted to break down. Next to it, intricate lines wound around her arm, marking hospital stays, illnesses, and moments of personal struggle. Each mark was a reminder of her resilience, of nights spent alone fighting battles she could not share, and of mornings when she had woken up determined to keep moving forward despite everything. Her colleagues stared in disbelief. They had assumed Emma's excuses were simple attempts to avoid responsibility, but the tattoo revealed the truth in a way words never could. It showed a life full of challenges, a life that demanded strength, courage, and perseverance. The whispering stopped. The laughter that had once echoed in the office vanished completely. For a moment, the room was so still that it almost felt sacred. Some colleagues exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of shock, guilt, and awe. They had laughed at her tardiness, mocked her hesitations, and assumed her life was easy because she was quiet. Now, They saw that every excuse had been rooted in real, personal struggles that required courage and resilience. The small, snide comments they had made now seemed trivial in the face of the story Emma's tattoo told. Emma's heart was racing, but not from fear. She felt a strange sense of release, of empowerment. She had carried this story silently for years, and now it was no longer hidden. For so long, she had feared judgment, feared being misunderstood, feared that others would dismiss her struggles. But now the truth was undeniable. Her tattoo spoke louder than any words she could have said, louder than the mocking laughter that had haunted her, louder than the whispers that had once made her feel small. The realization hit her colleagues slowly. They began to understand that the quiet Emma they had underestimated had survived more than they could ever imagine. Some of them shifted in their seats, looking uncomfortable. A few avoided eye contact, perhaps feeling guilty for their past behavior. Others stared at her tattoo in awe, beginning to appreciate the depth of experience and strength it represented. For the first time, they saw Emma not as a timid, late, or hesitant employee, but as a resilient, courageous person who had faced immense challenges and come out stronger. Emma noticed the change in energy around her. The atmosphere in the office shifted from judgment to respect, from mockery to awe. People were no longer whispering behind her back. Instead, they were observing her with curiosity and admiration. She could see that they were processing what they had just witnessed, trying to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the reality of who she really was. It was a moment of reckoning for both Emma and her colleagues. For Emma, this was not just about being recognized. It was about reclaiming her dignity. For so long, she had endured judgment and ridicule silently, fearing that others would never understand. The tattoo had allowed her to communicate in a way that words never could. It was her voice when she felt voiceless, her proof when she felt doubted, and her statement that she was more than the assumptions others made about her. As the minutes passed, a few colleagues finally spoke. I had no idea," one whispered almost apologetically. Another added, "I never realized what you've been through." Emma nodded silently, acknowledging their words without needing to elaborate. She didn't need validation. The moment itself was enough. She had shown her truth, and it had spoken for itself. Even those who were initially skeptical seemed to soften. They began to treat her differently, not because they felt pity, but because they now saw the strength she carried with quiet dignity. Emma's tattoo had done more than reveal her struggles. It had changed perceptions, forced reflection, and inspired a newfound respect. People realized that behind the quiet exterior was a life filled with courage, and that the judgments they had made were shallow and unfair. Emma herself felt a profound sense of relief. For years, she had worried that no one would ever understand her struggles, that her quiet strength would remain invisible. Now, the tattoo had done what words never could. It had communicated her story, her resilience, and her truth. It had silenced the laughter and replaced it with acknowledgement. For the first time, she felt truly seen. This moment marked a turning point in Emma's life and her work environment. The colleagues who had mocked her began to treat her with respect. They no longer dismissed her excuses or underestimated her abilities. The laughter that had once made her feel small was gone, replaced by an understanding that Emma was not just a quiet employee. She was a survivor, a person whose life experiences had shaped her into someone strong, capable, and deserving of recognition. Emma had always known her story was powerful, but seeing it finally recognized by others, seeing the change in their reactions, gave her a sense of validation she had never experienced before. Her tattoo had not just spoken. It had demanded attention, reshaped perceptions, and reminded everyone in the room that strength often comes in quiet forms, and true resilience is visible to those who know how to look. From that day on, Emma walked into the office with a quiet confidence. The mockery was gone, replaced by a respect that had been earned not through confrontation or argument, but through honesty, courage, and the unspoken power of her tattoo. She realized that sometimes the truth does not need words. It only needs to be shown. And when it is shown, it speaks louder than any judgment ever could. After Emma revealed her tattoo, the atmosphere in the office changed completely. What had once been a room filled with laughter, whispers, and judgment now felt heavy with silence, a silence that carried understanding. Her colleagues were no longer seeing her as the quiet, timid woman they had mocked for her excuses. Instead, they were beginning to recognize the strength, resilience, and courage that had always been hidden beneath her calm exterior. The tattoo was more than just a visual story. It was a testament to her life. Each symbol told a part of her journey. Nights spent in hospitals, moments of personal struggle, and triumphs over challenges that most people could not even imagine. There were dates etched into her skin marking milestones in her survival, intricate lines showing the depth of her pain and endurance, and small symbols representing loved ones she had lost along the way. To anyone else, it may have looked like beautiful art. But for Emma, it was a diary of survival and proof that she had faced and overcome adversity. Her colleagues began to realize how wrong they had been in judging her. The so-called excuses that they had laughed at were not excuses at all. They were reflections of real challenges she had faced in her life. Emma had not been careless or lazy. She had been quietly managing responsibilities and difficulties that none of them could have imagined. The revelation hit some of her coworkers hard. They had mocked her without knowing the truth, and now they felt a mixture of guilt and awe at what she had endured. Some of them tried to speak, searching for words that could acknowledge the truth without seeming intrusive. I didn't realize," one whispered, still staring at her forearm. Another said, "I never knew you had gone through all of this." Emma nodded gently, appreciating their acknowledgement but not needing to explain everything. The tattoo spoke for her. It told her story louder and clearer than any words could. It showed them her strength, her resilience, and her courage in a way that silence or excuses never could. Emma noticed the change in behavior immediately. People who had once whispered behind her back were now treating her differently. They approached her with respect, asked for her opinion, and included her more in discussions. The teasing and laughter had vanished, replaced by a recognition of her quiet power. It was a subtle shift, but one that Emma could feel deeply. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen and valued for who she was. The moment also brought reflection for Emma herself. She realized how much strength she had carried quietly over the years. She had endured challenges far greater than any mockery at work could represent, and yet she had survived, grown, and thrived. The tattoo had always been a personal reminder of that strength, but now it had also become a bridge to others, showing them that resilience often comes in quiet, unexpected forms. She understood that people often judge what they cannot see, and that assumptions about others are usually shallow. Emma also recognized that her colleagues' change in perception wasn't just about the tattoo. It was about honesty, vulnerability, and courage. By revealing a deeply personal part of herself, she had forced them to confront their assumptions and see her true story. She understood that sometimes people need to witness the truth before they can fully understand it. Laughter and mockery are easy reactions, but respect and understanding require awareness, empathy, and reflection. Over the next few days, the office dynamics continued to shift. Emma noticed that colleagues were more careful with their words, less quick to judge, and more willing to listen. They had learned an important lesson. Strength isn't always loud, and resilience isn't always visible. Emma's quiet courage had taught them that it wasn't about demanding respect. It was about revealing the truth in a way that could not be ignored. The tattoo had spoken, and it had changed everything. For Emma, the experience was transformative. She had always carried her story silently, fearing judgment and misunderstanding. But by choosing to reveal her tattoo, she had reclaimed her narrative. She no longer needed to apologize for her life or her experiences. Her truth had been witnessed, and it had commanded the respect that mockery never could. She felt a new confidence growing inside her. A sense of empowerment that came not from the approval of others, but from knowing that she had survived, endured, and revealed her strength on her own terms. The revelation also had a ripple effect. Colleagues who had doubted or mocked her began to rethink how they judged others. Emma's story became a quiet reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that everyone has struggles unseen by the world. People began to be more empathetic, more careful in their judgments, and more open to listening. Emma had not just changed how they saw her, she had influenced the office culture in subtle but meaningful ways. Through it all, Emma remained humble and focused. She didn't boast about her tattoo or her struggles. She simply allowed the truth to speak for itself. That authenticity and quiet courage were what truly transformed the way people saw her. The tattoo had done more than reveal her personal story. It had taught a lesson about empathy, respect, and the power of resilience. By the end of this period, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. She had endured ridicule, fear, and judgment, and had emerged stronger and more confident. Her tattoo had not only told her story but had also inspired understanding and respect in those around her. Emma realized that real strength often goes unnoticed, but when it is revealed, it can change perceptions, build respect, and inspire others. The mockery that once hurt her was gone, replaced by acknowledgement, admiration, and a newfound confidence that would guide her for years to come. After the revelation of her tattoo, Emma noticed a slow but steady change in her colleagues. What had started as shock and silent acknowledgement gradually turned into respect and genuine admiration. People who had once whispered behind her back now approached her differently. They listened when she spoke, asked for her advice, and included her in decisions in a way they never had before. It wasn't instant, but Emma could feel the shift. The quiet power she had always carried was finally being recognized. The laughter and mockery that had once filled the office were gone. Instead, conversations with Emma now carried a sense of sincerity. Colleagues seemed to realize that the girl they had underestimated had faced challenges far greater than any of them could imagine. They understood that her so-called excuses were never about laziness or carelessness. They were reflections of real life, of resilience, and of courage that they had dismissed too quickly. Emma watched this change with a quiet satisfaction, knowing that she had earned it not through confrontation, but by simply revealing the truth. Some colleagues, hesitant at first, began to approach Emma privately. They asked about the stories behind her tattoo, wanting to understand more about the journey that had shaped her. Emma shared selectively, giving them glimpses of her experiences without revealing every detail. She wanted them to see the strength, not just the struggles. With each conversation, the respect grew. People who had once doubted her now saw her as someone capable of handling challenges, someone who carried herself with dignity, and someone whose quiet resilience could inspire others. Emma noticed that her new standing in the office wasn't just about the tattoo. It was about authenticity, courage, and the willingness to show vulnerability. By revealing a deeply personal part of herself, she had demonstrated that strength is not always loud, and resilience is not always visible. Her colleagues began to reflect on their own assumptions and judgments, realizing how easily they had misjudged her based on appearances and superficial impressions. The change in perception also encouraged Emma to engage more confidently in her work. She participated in meetings with assurance, contributed ideas freely, and took on responsibilities that she might have avoided in the past out of fear of judgment. Her colleagues now valued her contributions, often seeking her opinion on important matters. The respect she earned allowed her to thrive in ways she hadn't before, boosting her confidence and sense of purpose. Emma also observed how her courage inspired others. Some colleagues who had once been quick to judge or dismiss others began to be more empathetic. They became more patient, more understanding, and more aware that everyone carries hidden struggles. Emma's quiet demonstration of strength became a lesson in humility and respect, subtly transforming the office culture. People began to realize that assumptions are often misleading and that true resilience is something to be honored rather than mocked. Even with the respect she now commanded, Emma remained humble. She didn't boast about her experiences or her tattoo. She simply let it speak for her. Her humility added to the admiration others felt for her. She had endured ridicule, judgment, and misunderstanding, yet she emerged with grace and dignity. Her colleagues' recognition was not just about acknowledgement. It was about seeing a person's strength, understanding their journey, and valuing the courage it takes to survive and thrive despite challenges. Over time, Emma found herself mentoring newer employees, offering support and guidance. She encouraged them to stay strong, to be authentic, and to never let others' judgments define them. Her experiences and the lessons from her tattoo allowed her to connect with others in a meaningful way. She had transformed her personal struggles into a source of inspiration, helping others navigate their own challenges with courage and integrity. Emma also realized that respect is earned not only through achievements but through character and authenticity. Her colleagues had respected her work for its quality, but it was her willingness to reveal the truth about her life that truly transformed how they saw her. The combination of skill, perseverance, and authenticity created a lasting impression, one that went beyond superficial judgments. The day-to-day environment of the office changed as well. Meetings became more collaborative and interactions more thoughtful. Emma's influence encouraged a culture where people considered the challenges of others before making judgments. It wasn't a dramatic shift, but it was a meaningful one. The laughter that had once hurt Emma no longer existed, replaced by understanding, recognition, and a sense of community. Emma felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The journey from being mocked to being respected had not been easy. It required patience, courage, and a willingness to reveal her truth. But the result was transformative. She had reclaimed her narrative, shown her strength, and inspired those around her. More importantly, she had proven to herself that her quiet resilience, her patience, and her authenticity were powerful tools that could change perceptions and build lasting respect. By the end of this period, Emma's position in the office was no longer defined by mockery or doubt. She had earned genuine respect from her colleagues, not through confrontation or argument, but through honesty, courage, and the quiet power of her experiences. Her tattoo had been the catalyst, but it was her character, perseverance, and authenticity that solidified her place. Emma had become a symbol of strength in her office, a reminder that true resilience is often invisible until it is revealed, and that respect, once earned through courage and authenticity, is far more lasting than superficial judgment. After weeks of tension, ridicule, and judgment, Emma's office life had transformed completely. The laughter and whispers that had haunted her during her early days were gone. Instead, a quiet respect filled the room whenever she entered. Her colleagues now understood that she was not someone to be underestimated. They had witnessed a glimpse of her life through her tattoo, and it had changed the way they saw her forever. But for Emma, this transformation was about more than just how others perceived her. It was about how she perceived herself and the lessons she had learned along the way. For years, Emma had carried her struggles in silence. She had faced personal hardships, illness, and loss, learning to endure and survive without recognition. The tattoo she had hidden for so long was more than decoration. It was a testament to her resilience, a visual diary of every challenge she had overcome. For a long time, she feared revealing it. She worried that people might mock her again, that her experiences would be dismissed, or that they would see her vulnerability as weakness. But the moment she finally showed it, everything changed. Her colleagues' reactions had been immediate. The laughter ceased, replaced by silence, awe, and respect. They saw Emma not as the quiet girl who made excuses, but as a survivor with depth, courage, and strength. This shift in perception extended beyond mere acknowledgement. It transformed the office culture. People became more thoughtful, more empathetic, and more aware that everyone carries struggles that may not be visible at first glance. Emma had unknowingly inspired a ripple effect, teaching her colleagues a powerful lesson about judgment, compassion, and understanding. Emma herself felt a sense of empowerment she had never experienced before. The years of ridicule and skepticism had once weighed heavily on her. She had questioned her worth and doubted whether her voice mattered. But showing her tattoo allowed her to reclaim her narrative. For the first time, she felt fully seen and validated. Not because someone praised her, but because the truth of her life could no longer be ignored. The tattoo spoke volumes, conveying experiences, pain, and resilience in a way words never could. This newfound recognition gave Emma confidence that extended beyond her interactions with colleagues. She began to approach tasks with renewed energy, participate more actively in meetings, and share her ideas without hesitation. The respect she had earned allowed her to thrive professionally. No longer constrained by the fear of judgment, she could fully contribute and assert herself when needed. Her voice carried weight now, not because she demanded it, but because she had shown that strength is not always loud. It can be quiet, steady, and undeniable. Emma also recognized the importance of patience and timing. She had waited for the right moment to reveal her tattoo, to show her colleagues her story in a way that could not be dismissed. This patience had amplified the impact of her revelation. Her experience taught her that sometimes, enduring hardship silently and strategically can lead to moments of powerful influence and lasting change. She had transformed vulnerability into strength, demonstrating that sharing one's truth can alter perceptions and foster respect. The lessons she had learned went beyond the office. Emma understood that the judgments people make are often shallow, based on appearances or incomplete information. She realized that true understanding requires empathy, patience, and the willingness to look deeper. Her own experiences had taught her this lesson firsthand. She had endured mockery, but she had also observed that those who mock often do so because they cannot see the full picture. By revealing her tattoo, she offered a window into her life, allowing others to see and appreciate the struggles behind her quiet demeanor. Over time, Emma noticed subtle but meaningful changes in her colleagues. People who had once dismissed her began to listen more carefully, support her ideas, and treat others with greater empathy. The office environment became more inclusive and understanding, reflecting the impact of her courage. She realized that demonstrating resilience and authenticity could influence not just individual perceptions, but the culture of an entire workplace. Emma's journey had also strengthened her sense of self. She no longer felt the need to shrink or hide to avoid judgment. Her tattoo, once a private symbol of strength, had become a source of empowerment, reminding her that she had survived everything life had thrown at her. She felt proud of her journey, proud of the resilience she had cultivated, and proud of the way she had faced mockery with patience and courage. Ultimately, Emma's story became a testament to the power of authenticity, perseverance, and courage. The tattoo had told a story that laughter and mockery could not silence. It reminded everyone in the office that appearances can be deceiving, that quiet strength can be the most powerful, and that respect is earned not through noise or confrontation, but through resilience, honesty, and integrity. As Emma continued her work, she carried herself with quiet confidence. The lessons of her journey stayed with her. Patience in the face of judgment, courage in moments of vulnerability, and faith in the strength that comes from surviving life's challenges. Her colleagues had learned from her example, and she had learned even more about the power of truth, resilience, and self-respect. The laughter that had once stung her had been replaced with understanding, and the mockery that had once threatened to break her spirit had become a distant memory. Emma's life had changed, not because she had sought recognition, but because she had revealed her truth. Her tattoo had spoken louder than silence, and it had changed everything. She had shown that strength is often quiet, that courage can be hidden, and that authenticity can transform how people see the world. Through her journey, she had not only earned respect but had inspired it, leaving a lasting impression that extended far beyond herself.